celebrating the reason that we're here tonight, which is the release of Vermont's first Civic Health Index. I've got my fan section right over here, cheering as loudly as we need him to. I'm Sarah Copeland-Hansis. I am your Secretary of State, and it is an honor to be here tonight to celebrate the amazing work of our team, led by Robin Palmer, who is our Director of Civic and Voter Engagement. Thank you, Robin. And a number of other partner organizations, representatives from which I will call up in just a few moments. This has really been a team effort. It's been really important to us to include many different voices, many different perspectives as we look at how we measure the civic health of Vermont. But I want to back us up a little bit and talk first a little bit about why we thought it was important to undertake a Civic Health Index. You know, when I ran for Secretary of State, I brought with me 18 years of experience serving in this building, representing 3 rural towns in eastern Orange County. And so I spent a lot of time at the polls, talking to voters in line at the grocery store or after church on Sunday morning. And inevitably, when elections would roll around, I would ask the question, are you going to vote? You know, like, the election is coming up on Tuesday. Can I count on you to vote? And, you know, I'm thinking, I want you to come vote for me, right? But I'm also gathering information. And what struck me over the years is that we have been whittling away at the reasons why people said that they weren't going to vote. We now have automatic voter registration, so registering to vote is not a barrier. We now have same-day voter registration so that there isn't an arbitrary deadline by which someone needs to have gone to their town clerk's office to get registered to vote. We have now automatic vote by mail for the November general election, which makes it super easy because if you're registered, you're going to get a ballot at home. And so when I got elected Secretary of State, I said, what is that last thing that I kept hearing from people about why they weren't going to vote? And what people said was, oh, I don't know any of those people on the ballot. I don't know even what those offices do. I'm not going to vote because I don't know anything about that. And that lack of understanding about our government and our elected officials and the system we operate in is a real detriment. And it's a detriment to people's health and to their happiness and to their ability to affect change when they see a problem that needs to be fixed. And so the Civic Health Index has really given us a way of measuring where we are now. And while you'll see on the slides that are rotating through later on this evening, you'll see that Vermont ranks really high, you know, number 2, number 5 in a lot of different categories. Look at the percentage of the actual people who said, yes, I do that thing. Because when you rank second in the country, but only 19% of your residents report doing something, there's a lot of work that we can do to make an improvement on that. So the other thing that's a little different about the way we did our Civic Health Index was we wanted to include youth voices. Including youth voices was really important to me because over the years I've seen so many times that even though we as adults can sometimes feel frustrated when we don't know where the levers of change are, young people increasingly are seeing, you know, like, we have all of these really huge problems and none of you all are fixing this, right? You aren't doing anything to fix this. And they're too young to vote, so they can't really feel empowered to get out and make that change. And so it was important to me to understand what the youth perspective is. So we did a survey of 2,500 students in grades 7 through 12, and we got some really great feedback from them, and then we were able to take that data, and Up for Learning helped us bring some focus groups together here at the State House so that young people could ground truth what they saw from that data. And it was really able to enrich the Civic Health Index and help us understand how do young people in Vermont see civic engagement and community and connection and power And I think that's going to give us a lot of our marching orders for the coming years as well. On the table in front of me, there's some really great resources. The Civic Health Index is there. There's also executive summaries if you don't want the whole booklet, some key takeaways there. I hope you'll take a look at some of the papers that we've brought to help you understand what we're doing in our civics realm. The overall takeaway from this survey is that Vermont ranks very high, but that we still have all of that room for improvement, and it's really up to us to gather feedback from Vermonters about how we go about closing that gap in many different ways. So we've been on the road since January, thanks to Vermont Humanities for helping support our Civic Health Index engagement sessions at libraries across the state. We've been getting a lot of feedback, and it's important to us to understand how people are receiving the data that they see in the Civic Health Index and also where they think we should go with it. Most relevant findings from some of these library events around the state. Folks are craving more community, chances to connect, places where they can come together with other people. We're also seeing that people would like more help in understanding how to be involved in a public meeting, whether it's serving on a town committee or just speaking at your town meeting or even running for local office. There's a vast gray expanse of unknown for most people about how you actually become one of those people who are leading in our municipalities. And we need to make sure that that information is available because there are plenty of demographics in our state who feel downright unwelcome in a lot of those spaces, whether because of their level of educational attainment or how long they've lived in the community, because we all know that that sense of, are you a real Vermonter? But we know that people want to get involved, and sometimes they don't know how, or they don't feel welcome. So that's another takeaway from the feedback events at the libraries. One of the consistent points of recommendation or excitement is more civics education. And this is both aimed at young people when they're in school, but also for adults. Again, how do you participate in a public meeting? How do you run for local office? And so civic education for young people and adults. So we see a lot of excitement around the idea of a civic seal on your graduation diploma. So a set of criterion that a young person needs to achieve before they graduate, and they get a civic seal on their diploma. The voter guide that we did for the first time, Robin Palmer did for the first time in 2024, was a huge asset to people who were trying to figure out who to vote for in November of 24. We need to continue with that voter guide. We need to make sure that it's available and accessible to people. The classroom blueprint, which is on the table here, is a set of resources for teachers to connect their classrooms with elected leaders, both at the local level and at the state level. And so all of those civics opportunities are really important and ones that we will continue to work on. The final takeaway from our visits with Vermonters around the state was that everyone is craving more arts and culture opportunities. And I think we can all think of, festivals and events and celebrations that happened pre-COVID that maybe never quite made it back. And these community gathering opportunities that are focused on arts and culture, but that really have that function of bringing us together with other humans in our region are really sorely missed. So supporting the arts and cultural opportunities is so well received and important to Vermonters. So I just want to wrap before I start inviting up some of our collaborators to share some thoughts with you. Sort of the heart of why we're doing what we're doing in this whole civics realm. Because action is the antidote to despair. And if you don't know how to come together with another group of human beings to fix a problem in your community, then what are you left with? You're left with despair, right? The other reality that I think we've all become keenly aware of since 2020 is that the lack of human connection and the feeling of isolation is terribly crippling. And in fact, in terms of health statistics, the feeling of isolation and lack of connection to other human beings has the health equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It has actual, real physical impacts on us. And so when we think about civics, we don't just think about making sure that people can recite the First Amendment or know what the 3 branches of government are. We really need to be thinking about civics as the way we come together as community to support each other and to fix problems. And so that's why I'm so excited that we're here to celebrate the launch of our Civic Health Index. And this project absolutely wouldn't have been possible without some really great partners. And so I'm going to introduce each of them to you. And I have a little gift to give each of them as they are coming up to share some thoughts with you. So first I want to introduce Cameron Hickey, who's the CEO of the National Conference on Citizenship. And they are the national organization who guides this work on Civic Health Index. So Cameron, thank you.
Thank you. I'm really pleased to be here and honored to be invited to talk a little bit about our organization and our work and how proud we are to be a part of Vermont's first Civic Health Index. The National Conference on Citizenship was founded in 1946. It was then chartered in 1953, which means we were sort of established legally by a law that Congress passed and that the president signed. And the point of the National Conference on Citizenship was to capture the spirit that existed during World War II and ensure that it continued to exist when we no longer had this galvanizing force of a world war that brought us all together with a spirit of citizenship. Since that time, we've been focused on a wide range of programs and activities and an annual conference and convening that are about maintaining active citizenship within this country. For the last 20 years, we've been specifically focused on measuring civic health, on the work that we're talking about today. I'm really pleased that we were able to contribute to what was our 99th Civic Health Index report. Vermont's is the 99th. Stay tuned for number 100. We're really excited about what that's going to be as well. It will include some of the learnings that we took from working with Vermont. I just want to take a minute to sort of express our gratitude to, first and foremost, the Vermont Secretary of State's office for their exceptional leadership in spearheading this, what we think is a vital tool in the process of understanding your community and improving it. But we also, their vision and commitment, along with the invaluable contributions of the Center for Rural Studies at the University of Vermont, who I think you're going to hear from, Serve Vermont, Up for Learning, and Vermont Humanities. Together, what was produced was a comprehensive vision of Vermont's civic landscape that we think is going to serve as a roadmap for strengthening democracy in the state going forward. I think for me, what's critical to take away at the starting point is Vermont Civic Health showed a lot of strength. Right? It showed, I joked a little bit, maybe the deck is stacked in Vermont. You've got a small, civically engaged, you've got a culture of direct democracy and participation. So the odds were really good that this first measurement was going to come out showing a lot of strength within the state. But as the Secretary mentioned, there's a lot of room for growth. For me personally, one of the things that's the most important is recognizing that the initial metric for civic health that we often think about and talk about is registering and participating in elections. For me, that's the floor, right? That's the baseline, but everything else that we do is what's critically important to having holistic civic health. So we heard that here in the communities that the Secretary of State's already been to, people are focused on new forms of engagement. As we look at the results of the Civic Health Index, what we see are that the key areas that Vermont is strong in are not just those areas around voting, but all the other areas of engagement: volunteering, donating, communicating with one another. Those are the things that we need to be thinking about going forward as we aim to improve not just Vermont's own rankings, which are already really high, but the overall engagement and participation. As we look to the future, one of the big learnings that we took away from Vermont's report that's inspiring our work is the need for even more data. So I think it doesn't say that anymore, but before it said Vermont's first Civic Health Index. We anticipate that this is not Vermont's last Civic Health Index or its only Civic Health Index. So what we heard in this report was the need for more fine-grained data, more localized data, data that we can track over time, so that the work that folks like everyone in this room are doing to improve the civic health in Vermont can be measured over time, so that we can understand the impacts of the work that we do, and so that we can see a target in the future that's even higher than where we are today. I want to preview for you how I think about this, which builds on some of the ideas that we heard in the current Civic Health Index, which is really looking at what the 4 pillars of civic health are likely to be going forward. And this is the way that we're going to think about this work and how we hope others are going to think about it as well. It starts with trust. Trust, I think, connects to belonging and identity within a community, but having civic trust is core and one of the challenges that we see across the country. Trust in local institutions, trust in media, these are challenges that we face. And we have a really hard time measuring trust. In addition to trust, we want to think about access. How can you actually engage civically? What are the tools? What are the things that are available to you? Then we want to think about civic knowledge. So how well do you understand? What is the level of civic education, and how well are people receiving that civic education? And then finally, all of that builds up to civic action. Today, what you see in the Civic Health Index is primarily a measure of civic action, that last thing. So those other 3 are really critical indicators we don't have enough data on today that we need to have tomorrow. One of the great things that you did in Vermont that we're really inspired by, and I think is going to lead to some other work for us, is talking to young people. I'm really pleased today that this is a convening that is about the Civic Health Index, and it's set in Civic Learning Week. So there's a national array of events that are going on all across the country. I think tomorrow in California, there's going to be a big national civic learning forum. And this presentation today and this Civic Health Index fits really well into the concept of Civic Learning Week, because you sought to understand what young people are thinking about, what they understand about civic health today, and what they can potentially do in the future, and where the gaps are that you need to fill to get them there. So I think in the future, we expect to see at the National Conference on Citizenship a National Youth Civic Health Index, because it's an area we don't have enough understanding of today that would benefit the future generations of legislators, activists, et cetera. So I'm really pleased to be able to be here, both as part of Civic Learning Week and as part of the launch of Vermont's first and definitely not last Civic Health Index. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, next I'd like to invite Phil Colling, the Executive Director of Serve Vermont. This is the state's commission on volunteering and national service. And they helped us to make this project financially possible, and also a very strong partner from the beginning. So Phil, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Being here.
Absolutely.
Saddle you with this before you walk away.
Okay. Hi, everybody. We're thrilled to have supported this work and played a small piece in everything that happened. We're a small but mighty team that mostly administers AmeriCorps programming in Vermont. So having the Secretary of State's office to partner with, and Robin, thank you so much for everything you did to make this happen. We did the easy part. I'm also thankful that lots of our colleagues across the country, lots of state service commissions have worked with NCOC on these, because I've seen what this work can do, how it can inform our state service plans, and how we move forward with leveraging our AmeriCorps resources to address community needs. It's always easier when you have lots of great data presented in a nice, clean package that we can say, hey, here's where we really need to lean in and what opportunities we need to offer. I obviously come at this work from the volunteerism and service side. That's how I tend to view civic engagement. I'm sorry, there's a lot more to it. There's voting, There's the humanities, and I think that's really the beauty of this project. When you start incorporating youth, the humanities, things like all the civic actions we should all be taking, civic participation, and then you also incorporate service, that really paints this beautiful picture of what a well-lived life looks like civically. So it was great to be able to talk to all these different partners, change how I look at this work a little bit as well, because again, we get stuck in our ways and we're always thinking, how do we get more people to serve? Well, if they're not engaged to begin with, they're not going to serve in their community. So things like this, having some great data, fresh data, and actually I know this will not be our last Civic Health Index, because on the volunteerism side, the updated data has some really good look for us here in Vermont. So let's definitely do a 2.0 soon. And I can look forward to continuing to work with all of these partners. These meetings in the libraries have really been a great way to sort of cross-pollinate, right? We talk about that all the time, but do we really do it? I don't sit down that often with educators and talk about what their needs or what they see youth as needing. I'm stuck in grant land, making sure that the money gets out the door. And so any of these silos we can break down through this work are just, it's one less barrier to complete wonderful civic life. And I hope we do end up in a Vermont where everybody feels engaged and is engaged in the ways that mean a lot to them and in the ways they want to be, and they have access to that. So thank you for this opportunity to partner with you on the work. I look forward to continuing it.
All right, Christopher Kaufman-Ilstrup of the Vermont Humanities. So he's been a champion of civic engagement and partnered with us on the Freedom and Unity comic book, which I know many of you legislators have enjoyed sharing with your communities over the years. And he's sponsored our community conversations with libraries and also provided us some great feedback along the way. So thank you, Christopher.
Thank you. I'll keep it brief, but I, of course, have to be here to wave the flag for culture, arts, and humanities. And we're really glad that, that arts and humanities and cultural issues were included in the Civic Health Index this year. We were deeply inspired, actually, by the Rhode Island Civic Health Index, which engaged the Rhode Island Humanities Council, I believe maybe for the first time. I hope that it's not the last time in the last Civic Health Index where Humanities Council will be involved down the road. I grew up in Vergennes and have lived in Vermont essentially my whole life. And my beginning on this journey was helping my dad to deliver the city annual reports door to door throughout the whole city of Vergennes in freezing cold weather right at the end of February in advance of town meeting day. And I feel like that early experience, being a page here in the State House, working for the Chamber of Commerce in the information booth in Vergennes when I was 14 years old, really led to this deep engagement with community that continues to this day for me personally, but I hope for lots of other young people that started to get engaged in this process as well. We're really pleased to have been part of the project. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you'll pass it out to everyone you know and point to the places where we can do better in the future, because this baseline data shows where we can grow. Thanks very much.
All right, Lindsay Hallman from Up for Learning. Near and dear to my heart was the ability to take some data that we got from the young people of Vermont and make sure that our report accurately reflects youth voices. And we also learned a great deal about facilitation, because if you can wrangle a group of youth, you can wrangle just about anyone. So thank you, Lindsay.
Good afternoon, everyone. If I had to put this down a little bit, there we go. It's an honor to be here today to share about Up for Learning's involvement in Vermont's Civic Health Index project, a trailblazing initiative putting youth voice at the heart of civic engagement. I'm Lindsay Hallman, the Executive Director at Up for Learning, which stands for Unleashing the Power of Partnership for Learning. and I'm incredibly proud of the role UP has played as a partner in making this project a reality. First, I'd like to thank the Secretary and Robin for their leadership and commitment to increasing civic engagement among young people. Their vision and support have made Vermont the first state to meaningfully engage and empower youth as part of the Civic Health Index project. While other states have produced similar reports, Vermont stands alone in incorporating both qualitative and quantitative data directly from middle and high school students, as well as having youth analyze their data and provide recommendations and action steps for the report. As part of this project, Up for Learning planned and facilitated a one-day gathering right here at the State House for Vermont youth. The purpose of this day was to review the youth survey data, identify strengths and opportunities for change, and develop a youth-led synthesis of the findings for the Civic Health Index report, including data, recommendations, and quotes. This process ensured that youth perspectives are not just heard, but reflected in the final report and future action steps, and you'll see that throughout the report. At the State House, students were tasked with examining the anonymous survey results and answering key questions like, what in the data is encouraging, what is concerning, and what is surprising? Youth and adult staff members from Up for Learning and the University of Vermont's Center for Rural Studies supported this dialogue, helping students make sense of the data and explore how to improve civic engagement for both youth and adults. This project represents a significant shift in how we engage young people in civic life. It's not just about gathering data. It's about empowering youth to shape the solutions. Through this work, Vermont is setting a national example of what it looks like to elevate youth voice and partnership in civic decision-making. At Up for Learning, we're really, really proud to support this important work and excited to see how youth-driven insights will strengthen Vermont's civic health for years to come. Thank you.
All right, and last but not least, please feel free to grab some more snacks if there are any grapes left. I am going to invite up Michael Mosier, who's with the Center for Rural Studies at UVM. He was our research expert and authored the report, and we could not have done this without him. Thank you, Michael.
So I didn't prepare a speech, so I'm not going to be as eloquent as some of the other folks, but I did want to get up here and just say a couple words. First of all, thanks to the Secretary of State and the Secretary of State's office, all the staff, and all the organizations across the state of Vermont that contributed to this work, all the people who spent time, working with us to understand the data, find data, and put it out there. Really a robust process and something that is sort of near and dear to my heart. I think civics is obviously always important and is becoming, it just seems like it's more and more important every day these days. And so it's important that we have an engaged citizenry and an informed citizenry. And from the Center for Rural Studies perspective, we're looking at data, we're thinking about data all the time. And so from our perspective, we just want to make sure that we're thinking as we go forward about where we can find more data to understand and track how well we're doing in the state of Vermont and how we can make improvements with, youth engagement and adult engagement too, which is often lower than youth engagement when it comes to the community. So I look forward to continuing this work and being part of continuations in the future, and thanks to everyone. Yep.
All right, that wraps up the official program of our evening, and I would love to invite you to mingle a bit more. I already see a few people in the room who I want to connect you with a few other people, so don't run off. Representative Holcomb, I'm going to chase you down. I might be able to catch you because I see your Yes. But I just want to thank you all for coming out tonight. It's Civic Learning Week, and it's a perfect opportunity for us to celebrate celebrate this important report, and also to acknowledge deeply from the bottom of our hearts that this is the beginning of a process, not the end. So we hope that you will share your thoughts, share your feedback, and share your suggestions going forward, because civic health is something that we all have to be a part of. And so I'm thankful you're here tonight, and I hope you will send us your suggestions of what we should do next. So thank you so much.